Great art can come from pain. You look at musicians like Lane Staley, Ian Curtis and Elliott Smith, and you see these amazing artists, and all of their amazing art comes from their pain. But what if I told you a man who caused nothing but pain by being addicted to squeezing young boys' muscles inspired one of the greatest horror films of all time? You'd look at me like I was nuts, and in a way you'd be right to, but there's an interesting theory about this, and in today's video I'd like to talk about it. Purple Aki. What can be said about this 7-foot muscle-touching menace that hasn't been said before? If you're watching this video, I'm assuming you've heard of Purple Aki before, but in case you haven't, here's his story. Purple Aki, whose real name is Akinwale Arobieke, is a man who became infamous in Liverpool, England and later around the world because of his crimes. You see, Purple Aki has quite the obsession with feeling muscles, specifically the muscles of young boys. Aki gained a reputation in the late 80s for approaching the young men of Liverpool and asking to feel their muscles. The nickname Purple Aki is racially motivated, and it's in reference to Aki's dark complexion, implying that Aki is so dark he is purple. On June 15th, 1986, the story of Purple Aki took a very dark turn when Gary Kelly, a 16-year-old boy from Birkenhead, lost his life at New Brighton railway station after being electrocuted, allegedly running away from Aki. Aki was convicted of manslaughter, but successfully appealed against the conviction on the grounds that he had not acted unlawfully by standing on the platform and looking into trains. Time went on, and then on the 22nd of November 2001, Aki appeared in court pleading not guilty to 50 counts of indecent assault and harassment on 14 teenage boys between February 1995 and September 2000. He was convicted of threatening behaviour and jailed for 2.5 years. When Aki was released in 2003, he continued his muscle-squeezing antics and quickly got himself arrested and charged once again. During the course of Aki's trial, 123 people were interviewed by the police, including one family who were forced into witness protection as a result of threats from Aki. And I thought Henry Hill had it bad. This led to Aki being charged with witness intimidation. Aki was jailed for 6 years on December 15th, 2003 after pleading guilty to 15 counts of harassment and witness intimidation. A further 61 counts, mostly of indecent assault, were left on file. When sentencing Aki, Judge Singler said, "You are a danger to young men and your behaviour is strange and obsessive." Aki was released from prison on October 26, 2006. Merseyside police applied to Liverpool court for an interim sexual offences prevention order against him, although he was never convicted of a sexual offence. Under the terms of the order, he was banned from touching, feeling or measuring anyone's muscles, as well as asking people to do squats for him in public. He was also banned from entering the town of St. Helens without police permission and loitering near schools, gyms or sports clubs. The ban was later ruled as draconian, but remained in force after a successful appeal by the police. But of course, on May 25th, 2007, Aki approached a man in Preston and touched his muscles without permission. He was arrested shortly after on suspicion of breaching his sexual offences prevention order and was later convicted and jailed for a further 15 months. He just cannot stay out of prison. The man is like a Nancy Black Charlie Bronson. There's a bunch of other crimes under Aki's belt, but at this point I'm assuming you understand why Aki got the reputation that he has. This brings me to the next part of my video, which is all about Candyman, and why I, and many others, believe the story of Candyman was inspired by the story of Purple Aki. To understand the theory, you first have to look at the life of the man who wrote the story that inspired the movie Candyman, Clive Barker. Clive Barker is an English playwright who came to prominence in the late 80s, just like Aki. This isn't the only thing Clive Barker and Aki have in common, as they both hail from Liverpool. Clive Barker wrote a series of short stories named Books of Blood, which established him as a leading horror writer. The theory that Aki inspired Candyman comes from one of these short stories named The Forbidden, from the 5th volume of his Books of Blood collection. The short story is about a woman named Helen, who is a university student writing her thesis on graffiti. She finds a painting of a creepy-looking man on the wall of an abandoned apartment. Beside the picture, someone has scrawled, "Sweets to the sweet." The apartment is in an area where a bunch of murders are rumored to have taken place, and the people in this area are hesitant to talk about them because it's some kind of unwritten rule that if you talk about these murders, the murderer will target you. The woman who tells Helen has her child killed because of what she said, and then at the end of the story, our main character Helen is killed for telling her friends about the killer. The thing with the Candyman is he's fueled by people talking about him. He needs that to exist. He lives off the rumor. And you have to understand that this story was published in 1985, a year before Purple Aki really became infamous for the train station incident. Aki was still doing the things he did, but very few people really knew if he was real or not. He was himself, at least at this point, a rumor. Another thing that might be worth mentioning is that Clive Barker is gay, and apparently Purple Aki has been infamous in Liverpool's gay community for a very, very long time, for obvious reasons. So, did Clive Barker hear about this muscle-squeezing madman and use him as inspiration for a legendary short story that would eventually inspire one of the most legendary horror films of all time? We may never know, but it's a good theory. It's very easy to dismiss the story of Purple Aki as something that's funny, haha, look at this big black scouse lad who hunts twinks down and feels their muscles. But you have to remember that this guy has legitimately ruined people's lives. He's traumatized families. Like, he really is a horrible person. Thank you so much for watching my video about if a 90s horror film was based off an infamous Liverpool nonce. This is my idea of a Halloween special. There'll be more stuff on this channel soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.